Good morning. It's Teacher Joe again, and today I will be annotating another poem. Alright, all the details about the poem can be found below if you've not yet printed it out, if you've not yet copied it out, whatever works for you. Please pause the video right now, go print it out, and come back. As with the previous time, I will not be making a copy of the annotations available because my goal is to walk you through the process, not to have you memorize poems wholesale for nothing. Okay, that's just not how it works. Today we'll be doing something a little bit more difficult, I think. Okay, it's called Circus by Margaret Stanley-Wrench. In this day and age, we don't really have circuses anymore because of animal cruelty issues, which is great, right? It was a very cheap form of entertainment for poor people long ago. I think children nowadays might possibly even find it dull, right? But yes, so we will be dealing with this topic today. I think it would still resonate with a lot of students. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments down below. Now, as mentioned in the last video, you need to know your literary devices. Your literary devices are your keys. The poem is the treasure chest. To access the treasures within the chest, you must be able to unlock the chest. Without your keys, you can't unlock it, okay? So, if you're ready, let's begin. I will read this once through for you. Saucer of sand, the circus ring. A cup of light, clowns tumbling. Horses with white manes sleek and streaming, bits jingling, tinkling, silk skins gleaming. But there, shut in their iron cage, sulky, drowsy, dulled by rage, the lions beg or trot or leap and cringe like beaten dogs and creep. King beasts who should be free to run through the forests striped with shade and sun, with fierce proud eyes and manes like fire, these manes hang dull like rusty wire. And when the trainer cracks his whip, they snarl and curl a sullen lip, and only in their dreams are free to crush and kill man's cruelty. Okay? So, a poem about animal cruelty. Again, the reason why we don't really have circuses anymore. Right? The only circuses you'll find are in Asia, usually third world countries, okay? Usually harder to get access to. Or, and I've seen this in an article somewhere, in Germany. Now, that should be surprising, right? But no, what they've done is they've made holographs of animals. So it's completely digitalized. And it's designed to provide an air of wonder, okay? But other than that, you don't see the circuses of old, where they have rides and contortionists and the famous bearded lady and peanuts in a bag, and you sit around a circle in a tent, a circle tent. You have clowns and acrobats swinging across the rafters, whilst in the ring below a bear is balanced on a ball, a lion is jumping through a fire, and so on and so forth. Okay, we don't see that anymore, and all the better for it. Now, as I did the last time, I'll do it again. I usually look at the form of the poem before anything else, right? Because poems usually have either some type of form or no form at all, and whether they do or not also tells us something, right? So just to recap, form is when we look at things like verse structure, we look at rhyme scheme, we look at rhythm, we count the number of syllables that are per line if necessary. Okay, so as we can see, there is a verse structure here. We have 4 verses of 4 lines each, so 4 verses, 4 lines each. Alright. Saucer of sand, the circus ring, that's 8. A cup of light clouds tumbling, 8. Horses with white manes, sleek and streaming. Okay. Bits jingling, tinkling, silk skins gleaming. So that's 8899 so far. But there shut in their iron cage, sulky, drowsy, dulled by rage. The lions beg or trot or leap and cringe like bitten dogs and creep. No, so not exactly, there isn't exactly a pattern in the syllables, so we can ignore that. Rhyme scheme, okay, definitely one. Ing, cage, rage, leap, creep. Now as you can see, EAP, EEP, slightly different, sounds the same. This is called what we call a half rhyme, okay? Run, sun, fire, wire, whip, lip, free, cruelty. Again, half rhymes here. Okay. So yes, there is a rhyme scheme. Assuming that this is in pairs, right, as with everything else, this is what we call a coupled rhyme scheme. Okay, so when it comes to rhyme schemes at the lower secondary level in particular, the more commonly used rhyme schemes are coupled, like this, AA, BBCCDD, or you have alternating rhyme schemes, ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, okay? And then a bit more difficult to write would be one where the entire poem follows a single rhyme scheme. Okay, the whole poem could end on an ing, for example. Okay, so in this case, there is a lot of structure, right? 4 lines, 4 verses. It's about the same. The number of syllables per line generally range between 7 and 9. Okay, so quite regular, just without a discernible pattern. Rhyme scheme definitely is there. So what does this remind us of? It's almost like there is a structure, right? And that's the case with circuses. Okay, and possibly why children nowadays would be less entertained by a circus as opposed to children from 50 years, 100 years ago. There was a lot less in the form of entertainment. Entertainment wasn't something you had every day, right? We have our phones every minute now. So this would have been something more special, but nevertheless, the structure of the circus always remains the same. Like I said, you enter the circus grounds, there are going to be people selling balloons, clowns walking around on stilts, there's usually a bearded lady, there's usually a contortionist, there's usually a strong man who lifts, massive weights and barbells and stuff like that. I can even tell you that the strong man is usually quite hairy in the chest with a big handlebar mustache, wearing leotards, right? There's a structure. There's always going to be someone selling peanuts in a cardboard bag, a cardboard cup or a paper bag that is usually striped red and white. Likewise, the tent is usually striped red and white. You go in, you sit in a circle, or around the circle. In the middle there's always a circle with sand, and right in the center of that circle of sand is another circular like a box that the ringmaster will stand on. The ringmaster is usually wearing a red suit. Again, he has a handlebar mustache and a huge top hat. He always holds a whip. right? Many things are happening at the same time. The acrobats are flying. There'll be a flying trapeze performance in the air, and they're flying back and forth, whilst at the same time animals are performing down below, with the lions usually jumping through hoops, followed by hoops on fire. There's going to be a bear wearing a tutu, balanced on a ball, and traversing around the circle, right? It's always the same. It's the same thing over and over again. Doesn't matter where the circus is, it's the same. Okay, so in that sense, I think what the poet is trying to say is that circuses are all the same. Okay, it implies, yes, if program structure remains the same, but likewise the cruelty to animals remains the same. And it could be that maybe some circuses are trying to pass themselves off as being a bit more ethical, right? But she's trying to say, no, look clearly. They are all cruel. It's just how well they hide it. Okay, so let's look at the rest of the poem to see if there are any other points that support this thought. All right, I'm just guessing right now, and that's what it is, right? Because at the end of the day, Margaret Stanley-Wrench is possibly, I don't know if she's dead or alive, right? But definitely we can't question her as to what she really means. And as I've mentioned before, with unseen poetry and stuff like that, there isn't technically a correct answer. It's just a matter of whether you're able to elaborate on your points, right? Now let's just say your assumption is completely wild, completely illogical, completely irrational. Then you'll definitely get it wrong, because when you try to elaborate, it's not going to cut the mustard, is it? Right? So that's what elaboration and argument is for. You have to be logical about it, okay? So definitely choice of word, okay? So let's look at how they describe their lions, right? Sulky, drowsy, shut in, right? Dulled. They beg, they trot, they leap, they cringe, like beaten dogs, and creep. Okay. So clearly the literary device I'm going for here is diction. Okay, so these words used to describe a lion, that's not right. Okay, they shouldn't be shut in, they should be free. They shouldn't be sulky, drowsy, dulled by rage. Why drowsy? It's possible that in between shows they are drugged. In fact, before they go on the show, they might actually be drugged so that they don't attack people. It's possible. Right? Beg, trot, leap, cringe, creep. All these are words that should not be associated with the king of the beasts, right? And once again, this is the poet's point. Pay attention. Are the lions doing this? If they are, you know they must have been treated in a cruel way, right? They've lost their feistiness, they've lost their spirit, and something must have been done to break them in such a way. Okay, now what are these descriptions juxtaposed with or compared with, right? So using a different color again, we have juxtaposition. Now juxtaposition is when you put two things side by side, okay, and you compare them and realize the differences. Okay, so first set of juxtapositions can be found in the first verse, right? So let's look at the first verse, okay? Let's look at how they describe the horses with their white manes. They're sleek, they're streaming, they're gleaming. It sounds all very nice, right? Over here in the third verse, how should king beasts be? They should be free, okay, with fierce, proud eyes and manes like fire, okay. These are the things that the animals should look like. Okay, so these are the words that should be used to describe either a lion or a healthy, happy animal. Now let's look. Why do you think the horses are treated better? It's really simple. Horses are bought domesticated, right? So keeping them healthy and all that, it's normal, right? And it's always nice to see horses come out in white, right? Ribbons tied in their manes and their tails. Usually they have like all kinds of grand pieces and bits put on them, like a uniform, and they look really nice. That's the opening act. Okay, so you start clapping and cheering. Lions. We're taught to fear lions, aren't we? Because they're so frightening. So to see them in this more vulnerable stage gives us some sense of ease, unfortunately, for them, okay? But how should they be? They should be free to run, right? They should be in a forest, not in a cage. They should be fierce, not dulled by rage. They should have proud eyes, not cringe like dogs, with manes like fire, right? Not sulky, drowsy, begging, creeping. No. And definitely not with manes that hang dull like rusty wire, because nobody grooms a lion. Everyone's frightened of lions, right? So why would you groom them? You wouldn't get near them if you can afford it. Okay? So what the poet has done is to tell us this is what they look like. This is how they should be. By educating her readers, by creating awareness, because maybe you don't know. And if you are the type of person who can only afford circus entertainment, right? It was usually like 1 pence or 10 pence. If that's all you can afford, it does say a lot about your education status. Things like rights, civil rights, that's like not in your mind. It's not something you can afford to think about. Thinking about human rights is sufficiently time consuming. Animal rights, nobody's got time for that. Okay, so she's trying to put it forth in a very simple to understand way, okay, so that more people will realize it and speak up against it. Okay, so let's look for the next literary device. It's a bit difficult to spell, I know, and it's a bit difficult to pronounce. I'll say it once more for you. Onomatopoeia. Okay, more or less. I might be getting it slightly wrong. Basically, it refers to the use of words that sound like what they're supposed to sound. Think about comic books. Think about Batman or Superman or whatever. When they punch someone, there's gonna be a big bubble that says bam, pow, whoosh. These are onomatopoeia, words that sound like the sounds they're supposed to mean. Okay, so we see that here as well. Okay, using a different color, we have jingling, tinkling, right? And it just sounds really nice, tingling, ling, ling, jingling, ling, ling. It sounds very gentle, right? And that's how it opens up again. We're distracted. Look at the number of distractions in this verse, right? You have the light, the cup of light, which refers to the spotlight. Okay, usually in a circus tent, up in the top, there's gonna be someone who manages the spotlight. Okay, and it looks like a cup, and then the light comes out like that, so it's a cup of light. All right. Then you have the clowns, juggling, tumbling, jumping off a ladder into a small little bucket, all sorts of chaos, and then your ears are hearing tingling, tingling, right? It's a lot. So on top of this onomatopoeia, I'm going to link it to imagery as well, because we see a lot of imagery here. right? Saucer of sand, circus ring, cup of light, clowns tumbling. These are things we can see, right? This is something we can see. Okay, this is something that we can hear. Okay, so our senses are distracted by all this, that we are dulled to the subtleties, okay, as described in here, okay, or even here, right? That's why she has to make us aware of it. Okay, so we have, all right, a lot of visual and auditory imagery. What the poet also doesn't mention is things like olfactory, what we can smell, gustatory, what we taste, right, as part of the entire experience. But that's not really important. Right now it's about the senses with which we perceive the animals. Okay, those senses are overloaded, so we don't notice the subtle stuff, the stuff that's less clear, the stuff that isn't put into our face. Not really. All right. Okay, what else can we find? Going back to what we said before on diction, all right, here's another description. Sullen, right? They are being sullen, so that tells us a lot about their feelings. Okay, so that's another literary device that we can actually look out for, feelings, because that's the point, right? If you're going to bring up animal cruelty, you are talking about their feelings. How do they feel that makes this so wrong? Feelings. All right, so think about the words again through the use of diction. What do we determine? Okay, cringe, creep, dulled by rage, okay, sullen. All right, these words, what do they tell you? Right, it speaks of a lot of fear. It speaks of a lot of unhappiness. It speaks of resignation. Right? They are frightened, which is why they cringe and they creep. They are unhappy, which is why they're sullen. Right? They're resigned, dulled by rage. Are they angry? Yes, but can they do anything about it? No. Right? Even sulky shows us that they are unhappy. Okay? So it tells us a lot of the feelings of the animals, because until we know how they feel, we won't know like if there's anything worth doing about it, right? If we think they're happy, then it's like, okay, well, they're happy, what's the problem? It's like with zoos. We're okay with zoos because zoos are designed to protect the animals, to conserve the more endangered species, to give them a good life, right? With circuses, on the other hand, there's no such thing. So when we know how they feel, then we might do something about it. Okay? But obviously the feelings, these feelings are what they feel in the present. It doesn't stop them from dreaming. Okay, and we see that in the last two lines. And only in their dreams are free, which, as we know, dreaming, not real, to crush and kill man's cruelty. Now, there's no literary device here, but I do want to bring it up. So what's the usual justification for being cruel to a lion? To crush and kill man, all right? And maybe that's the argument that these circuses have, you know. We have to be cruel to them, because if not, they are going to attack us, right? They're fierce, they're frightening, so we must beat them, we must break their spirit so that, you know, we can control them and they can't attack us. Okay, that kind of sort of makes sense, except if you remember, where do lions live? They live out in the savannas and so on and so forth, places where there are animals, easier prey, right? Prey without guns. Man can kill. a lion from afar. We have ranged weapons. Okay, animals don't. So if they go after things like deer, you know, smaller, weaker prey, it's much easier target. Lions are not that stupid. So why would they crush and kill men? Why, if they, you know, they drug the lions, making them drowsy, right? Remember that. So why do you think they have to? They say, well, if not, they'll get vicious. Yes, they're vicious because you put them in a cage. So the word here is man's cruelty. They're not trying to kill a man. You don't just stop here. It's man's cruelty. She is trying to make it really clear, fighting the arguments put forth by the circus. If they kill the circus staff, it's not because they're man. It's not just because lions are vicious. It's because of what these people have done to the lion. Whipped them, right? From, where's the word here? And when the trainer cracks his whip, right? This is a very significant word, significant phrasing. Okay, crack. Why crack? Because crack is onomatopoeia. It's the sound that the whip makes, you know, crack, when you fling it, when you use the whip, right? So from the word crack, not only do we get the onomatopoeia, okay, we also get the feeling, right? This bit of imagery here is sensory imagery. We can feel it from the words crack and whip. We can feel the whip on our backs, especially if you've ever been caned before, that sharp sting. And we can feel the skin cracking. Likewise, we can feel it for the animal. That's the cruelty that this is referring to. Okay, so in this case, yes, you have lots of literary devices compounding together. We have sensory imagery. We have auditory imagery. And that helps us to understand this cruelty that the poet is referring to. All right. So, a slightly more difficult poem, I think, in that it's got a lot more literary devices that you might not be entirely familiar with, like juxtaposition, onomatopoeia. We go into more types of imagery as well. We cover imagery again and the different types. We have to split the sentence to realize what is said and what is actually meant, so on and so forth. All right, but still not too difficult a poem. Okay, so we summarize the poet's message. All right, so 3 dots in essence, or therefore. Okay, circuses equals animal cruelty. Again, take into consideration when this was written. I know that at the start of the video I explained about these new circuses in Germany, but they don't use animals at all, so that's a completely different thing. Circuses that have animals in them involve some measure of animal cruelty because you're taking them out of their habitat. Right? You're putting them in an uncomfortable environment. You are breaking their spirit, their wild animal spirit, so that they will do what you want them to do, things that are unnatural to them. Bears should not be balancing on balls while wearing tutus. Lions should not be made to sit on a little box, jump through fire. That's just cruel. You're subjecting them to fear over and over and over again for people's entertainment. Okay? And a more subtle message is pay attention, because it's not just circuses, is it? Lots and lots of other things out there are wrong, right? For example, I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but there was this trend at some point originating from China where little terrapins and goldfish are put into some blue tinted water. And the water is blue tinted because it contains nutrients and chemicals to keep them alive, right? And they are sealed in little plastic pouches and attached to a key ring so that you can use it as a keychain. I mean, these things are what? 4 cm by 4 cm. It's not a big space. They have no opportunity to grow. You know, there's just animal cruelty right there, and they're bound to die because there's not enough oxygen in there, right? So that's animal cruelty. But when it first came out, people bought lots of them because it's so cool. I get a pet and it's in there, and they don't realize just how cruel it is. Likewise, hedgehogs are illegal to own in Singapore. They shouldn't be imported into Singapore, right? Because after a while, some people get sick of the hedgehogs and they release the hedgehogs into the wild. And the thing is, hedgehogs can't naturally be found in Singapore for a reason. It's a completely different habitat. So when you release them in the wild, you know, you put them under in immense stress. Right? And that again is animal cruelty, but to them it's like, well, you know, it's run its course, right? They don't realize, they don't think about their actions and so on and so forth. So this poet is having them pay attention to these things. All right? So I hope this helps you in some way. If there's anything else that you've discovered from the poem that you'd like to discuss, go ahead. I do find that sometimes after an exam or after reading and annotating a poem once through, a few minutes, a few hours, a few days later, I realize, oh, there's something else, right? And then you see something else a little bit deeper. Okay, now I'd just like to bring up, if you're doing this as an unseen, alright, poem, in an exam, okay, assuming that these annotation skills that you're trying to learn are not just for in-class annotation or part of your homework. Obviously, don't annotate the entire poem. Read the question, right? Because you don't have time, especially if it's a really long poem or a really complex poem, right? Pay attention to the question that's given to you, okay? If the question is, what is the poet's message? Then only annotate the things that tell you that message. Don't annotate anything else. In this case, it's a slightly simpler poem, right? There's just really one message. Okay, but if it's a poem with multiple messages, then only annotate the things that tell you, that support the message in relation to the question. All right? Don't do too much because you don't really have the time. All right, unless you are very, very, very comfortable with annotation, it comes to you very naturally. Back in JC, when I used to annotate poems for exams, you know, we had 45 minutes per essay. My school taught us to write 6 to 8 peels per essay, right? But I was able to annotate a poem in under 10 minutes. That comes with practice. That's not a superhero power. It's not something that comes naturally to me. No, that came with practice, right? So if you know you can't annotate an entire poem in under 10 minutes and formulate your answer at the same time in that planning session, don't annotate the entire poem. Just annotate what you need. All right? Okay, I hope this helps. Good luck for your exams, those who have yet to take your lit exams in Singapore. If you have any questions, again, pop them in the comment box below or write to me. I'll leave my website in the box below. Have a good day. Bye-bye.